That's very exciting.
Yep, there it is, and get a little background here for every guest, so you get these lovely mountains that we're blocking, but the sun in the
These
background.
the geometric mountains.
This is it. But this is Friday Fodder. This is the studio, and obviously this is Dan Garraway. And I don't think I've ever seen you in the same location on a video call, not once.
Well, that sounds much more exciting. I mean, prior, I think I spoke to you upstairs, whereas now I'm talking to you from downstairs. So the transition isn't as dramatic. But yeah, I'm still in California. I'm guessing you're still Florida.
Still in Florida.
And
Still in Florida.
can you
Yep.
talk me through where it is again?
Yeah, I am in. I actually never know how to answer this question because
Well, that's probably
sometimes I'll answer it as if I tell you exactly where I am, and you know, but you probably won't. And then I'll answer the question where I'll tell you not where I am, but probably what you heard of, and then you'll like dial in and ask me. And it turns out you grew up like a street away from here. So I am in Lake Worth, is the town.
Yeah.
It is in Palm Beach County. West Palm Beach is like the main little small city downtown area we have. I'm about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on where you're going in Miami, from Miami.
And have you done more than your kitchen in renovation?
I have no. I mean, pretty much what you presumably saw is really it. I mean, we added an air fryer this week. We decided, you know what, we're air frying too much shit. Like, it's a pain in the ass too. And we have 2 air fryers, by the way. It's such a pain in the ass to get it from the pantry. Let's just keep it out. So we cleared out some space. That's the only addition since probably last you saw
it. Okay.
And what I like about this chat, and there's so many reasons beyond you're one of my favorite humans that I'm talking to you. Like my whole this whole evolution and this whole thing we're doing kind of was a we talked a lot about this like 3 years ago. Not so much like this Friday Fodder thing, but a podcast and also embracing some randomness. Let me take you back to. Do you remember sitting at a bar with it was 2 other people? So it was basically 4 of us, and I said, and this is actually my second time with you on this particular day. Like we already had lunch, and now I guess it was happy hour drinks. And we were talking about Kirby has this idea for a podcast, and I was kind of explaining what this idea was, which again, it's not this one. And we all of a sudden got into this debate at a bar about whether or not let me stop there. Do you remember what this debate at this bar was about with some random now 5th person at the bar?
I wish I did. Was it? No, I don't.
So my memory is my best attribute, and when that goes, I'm fucked. Yeah. But that 5th person and the bartender, so there's actually 6 of us.
Yeah.
Debating whether or not ketchup should go on a hot dog.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah.
Why? I don't know. But my thought was, this is great. Like we'll talk about the streaming industry, and we could go on a tangent about hot dogs. This is perfect.
Yeah. That's a summary of your brain. I would say
it is my brain. I'm starting to fully embrace my ADHD. I did a LinkedIn post and said, hey, I have this newsletter, does all this like industry stuff, but once in a while I'll talk about restaurants and food because ADHD, like I gotta satisfy my squirrel. Look at that. There's actually a squirrel in the tree. There was actually a squirrel in the tree. How about that?
You see, this is why it's like a lovely magical mystery wonder world, isn't it, inside your brain? Which actually matches with this background, because it's kind of like geometric, sunrise in the background. Lots of exciting stars in the future, but all of that is in your brain, basically. I don't remember that conversation. I don't remember the detail of that conversation. I was actually starting to think it was something to do with the industry, which is exactly why it was the wrong answer.
Yeah. So let me
talk me through what's going on though. But you've got the beard now, so that's a
I'll tell you about the beard. Little story behind it. Not a great one, such as most of the stuff I say on these things.
Sure.
Spam call there. Like walking through Friday Fodder. So, and I do have. I've been doing the last few of these with my former business partner Tom Schaefer. We co-founded Float Left together. So he was actually supposed to be. He was actually supposed to be road tripping back from Georgia, where he was last week when we did this, to Florida. I see him on here. I'll let him in. I'll let him in shortly. I don't even know if he can see us. Oh, okay. He can hear and see us. So let's just let him in then, because I already forgot what I was saying.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Hi Tom.
I am so sorry for disrupting this conversation. I was actually supposed to be in my car, but it turns out that I'm here, and I did not want to miss our Friday session. So I'll let you guys continue, but
I can see why. Yeah.
And something you didn't ask, Dan, was my shirt. This shirt is to pay homage. So first of all, thank you for always entertaining me. No questions asked about my video ventures. So I'm wearing this shirt because this is what I wore when I remember I was sitting in my backyard, old house at the time, and we were chatting with. So I had this idea for this podcast, and then we can go into that or not. But I had this idea for a podcast. COVID happened. The whole podcast was supposed to be in person. Was like, well, Dan, I kind of want to try this thing virtual. Let's invite some people on. And we did 2 of those. The first one was with Devin Emery from Curiosity Stream. Great conversation. And the other one, another good conversation was Kim Hurwitz, which Tom knows Kim. But I was wearing this shirt. And so I actually tell you the truth, the shirt I put on before that was wrinkly. So I was like, let me put on this one then. I don't think I've worn this since then.
Again, you stored that in your mind. That's a memory of the shirt that you wore.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I don't know if it's impressive, or I don't know what
it's a hell of a shirt.
Oh, no, it's not impressive. I seriously watch that podcast video like every weekend on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. That's yeah. That does not work for me. Brain cells do not connect in that same way, which is why this whole podcast is a study of your brain cells.
And so you asked about the beard. So I'm doing I'm not necessarily trying to lose weight, lose fat really. So I've been doing this since December, down 20 pounds. But in the meantime, I was like, well, let me grow a beard, and just keep it growing at the same time. So hopefully my before and after is crazy from top to bottom. So that's what's going on with the beard. Keeping that until at least end of March. And it's not longer. At this point, it's kind of just my character. I think my hair is growing wider this way. My face is getting longer this way. At this point, I'm becoming an NFT. I kind of like it. I have these glasses too, but I don't wear them because of the glare.
Oh my. You're going like Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
I officially started wearing, I don't even know if I should admit this, but these are actually reading glasses. And it's happened. I mean, I'm 45, going to be 46 in a couple of weeks. So what are you going to do?
March 23rd, right?
22nd.
22nd. All right.
Nice
so my anniversary is the 23rd. So I always get those 2 dates confused.
Yeah.
Dan, let me bring you up to speed what the hell this Friday Fodder is. You know plenty about, because you were actually there when I was talking about doing the Streaming Wars podcast. You were physically there at lunch. You were physically there 3 hours later at happy hour. And you were virtually there when I couldn't do it, but wanted to do it virtually, like we were talking about. So I want to do this podcast. There's some logistic problems. One, I'm down in Florida now, and people are going to most likely be in New York City or LA. But also, that said, a lot of people have moved out of the city, and they're in Asheville, North Carolina. They're all over the place. Yep. And I have no qualms about traveling what's that?
Nightmare for politics. All this distribution of politics going on in different states in the country. I mean, it's going to change the face of politics, to say the least, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
People moving to North Carolina, people in New York City moving to. I mean, I moved to another Democratic state, California, obviously. there's a number of people who have moved into red states, red states moving to blue states. It's a very interesting time. That is an aside. No?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't thought of that before.
I see thought about that before. It's rare I catch something you haven't thought about before. That's exciting.
So Dan, we have not. I don't think we've crossed paths at all. I'm trying to think if we have. Maybe over the course of my time at Flow Left, we have, but indirectly. But yeah, I don't know that we've ever actually met. So nice to meet you. And your VP of Strategy is that at Vimeo?
Yeah. So we met. Kirby and I met during WIREWAX, which was and it's still around, wirewax.com, and that is an interactive video platform. It has a range of creative tools to make video interactive, and I kind of think about it as a kind of Photoshop or a Keynote for making interactive video. It's part of a sort of movement of no-code tools. You think about Webflow, you think about Figma, you think about those kind of tool sets. We are that, but for video and interactive video specifically. And that is where we are built out to basically last year, where we did a partnership launch, where we were launching a partnership with Vimeo, and then it just became a great fit. And so we moved into an acquisition which closed in December last year. And so we're now Vimeo Interactive. I can probably show you a few things if we wanted to go into that. And that is launching to market over the next few months as a new part to the Vimeo platform. And so, yeah, it's actually quite an interesting point of transition right now, where much of what we've been working on for 13 years is coming to the masses.
Wow.
And
Dan,
to be honest,
congratulations, man. That is incredible. I didn't realize that's on me. I didn't actually make that connection, but I see that now, and that's fantastic. Congrats on that. That's got to be amazing for you, and I'm sure Vimeo as well, right? So
yeah, and one of the things that was really interesting about the process was that Vimeo conducted their own research, as you would expect, about what interactive video is and the interest in the market. And what they came back with was pretty much universal interest, right? Especially during the pandemic. But the market for interactive video is very fragmented, and people largely know WIREWAX and maybe a few other players in the market, but there's not a big name behind it. And Vimeo is the big name now behind it. So it's becoming a lot more of a mainstream application of video. And I think over this year, we'll see really sizable shifts in this area. And for us, I could have talked to you about this, and Kirby and I probably did 5 years ago. I could have talked to you about 10 years ago. A lot of the stuff we talked about 10 years ago is now coming to fruition, because it's taken that long for the market to really evolve to the point when they want to do something different. I think there's an interesting sort of phrase my wife actually said ages ago, which I used myself, which is, you can't expect to do the same thing and get different results. That is the default with video. I mean, we spent a lot of time fussing about adding 3D, a lot of time fussing about adding different levels of HD. We're pissing about at the same thing. What we need to do as an industry is really present really innovative movements forward, especially for the traditional media industry. Otherwise, it would be dictated by new incumbents and new incumbents alone. And I think there is huge amount of value in the media industry, creative understanding of what they're producing for audiences that can be collected up into new technology movements. And this has been happening. The pandemic, when it first started for us, I thought genuinely I did not know what would happen, because we've always been viewed, and I would not have liked to say this, but we were always viewed as a nice to have. It's like, oh well, this interactive stuff totally makes sense. It's going to be the future. Let's just do it a little bit later on, if you don't mind. It's that kind of thinking. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, okay, well, that probably means we're we're going to be one of the things that gets cut out the budget. It was a complete inverse of that. Everyone realized that people were spending a lot more time through video watching at home, and yet actions from video were negligible, if not the same. You know, there was no translation from the uptick in watching to an uptick in actions and outcomes. So I think that really propelled interactivity to the forefront and what validated our partnership with Vimeo and eventual acquisition.
I definitely think that COVID had a definite acceleration on the majority of the industry. A lot of the players that were embedded in the industry, the folks that have been doing it for a long time, definitely saw an acceleration in their businesses, Flow Left included. So yeah, I think that was definitely, terrible across the board, but good for some industries. And I think streaming video for sure is one of the benefactors of that. So
yeah. Go on.
No, I was gonna say you guys do a lot of cool stuff and executions that go beyond the streaming video industry. But speaking of the streaming video industry, like what's the biggest opportunity for interactive video within this space?
Well, the primary focus at the moment with Vimeo is for that to be the enterprise add-on. In other words, like the use cases there are a lot around marketing. On average, 67% of people will interact with the video if there's interactive available through WIREWAX or Vimeo Interactive. And then, obviously converting that in shoppable video context, we're seeing a lot more strategic uses of that. And I will show actually, if they can do screen sharing, what that looks like.
Let me see. There's a lot of there should be an icon, a screen with a little arrow pointing up. Let me know if you don't see that. Maybe it's only
there is. When you talk about things like shoppable video going further, this is NBC who launched NBC Checkout in August in the pandemic. NBC Checkout is a cross digital property product that essentially allows you to connect any videos through to outcomes and shoppability, right? And when you're on NBC.com domain, Sci-Fi, Bravo, on this case, E! you can see videos that are like snippets of content from TV or even purpose-made content like this, which is like a Black Friday deals thing. And you'll see they actually incorporate interactive segments like this, where it will showcase things you can buy. And they've got a universal shopping cart right inside here. So as you interact and you select something, it will actually trigger in their e-commerce system here for fulfillment. So you can continue watching, you can explore products, you can get into the idea of buying something whilst you're watching. And what's nice about this as well is you can add to cart, you can add to wish list, and every video that you move between, or every page that you move between, your wish list follows you. So all of the items you're adding through these videos become part of your kind of like shopping list, if you like. And I think this is the stuff that, just makes a lot of sense when you're talking about connected experiences through video, right? Why is video an isolated asset? That's what we're trying to tackle here. Why is it that essentially over the last 150 years, I'm exaggerating for effect, we took video from being on a CRT screen in the corner of the room and put it onto a thinner screen, but essentially we didn't connect the asset, right? The asset is just a display. Well, this illustrates in very, very visual terms that it doesn't need to be. It can be connected to the interest that the viewer has. It can allow them to shop easily and seamlessly without leaving the video, and just be integrated into the workflow of a viewer, really. So, this is the stuff that I've seen the media industry moving towards a little bit more.
Yeah, this is definitely the hot area right now. Shoppable TV and shoppable video for sure. Dan, what on that web page? Just curious, is the WIREWAX/Vimeo Now tech? Is that driving purely just what's inside the video, or are you also doing things like that display of products that you're teasing out and putting on to the right hand side there? Is that all part of kind of driven by your technology?
It depends. So in the case of the one I'm showing you here, they've integrated it into their own e-com systems. This is a universal cart that follows all sorts of interactions. So they basically got this player is our player that's triggering events, and then they listen to those JavaScript triggers on the page and connect it through to some sort of action. But if you're talking about like, you know, a Jamie Oliver, for example, this is him in a vertical video for social. You know, you've got lower thirds here where you can see the books. He produces about one book every 5 minutes, so you've got plenty to choose from on pre-order. And then you can also see, you know, buying products in this. This is an overlay. This is actually much sort of more common, is that an overlay will appear with information on the product. And then if you click on buy it now for this, it will pre-populate the Amazon cart with that item. So like,
yeah, this is great.
It depends on the integration. And by the way, all of this is done inside the Studio platform. You don't need any coding expertise to do it. So this is a very sneak peek, but this is the Vimeo Interactive Studio, and very simple to look at and very simple to use. You've got visualization top left, you've got your timeline along the bottom here, and then you can jump into like adding your interaction. So if I add hotspot, I've got a range of templates here available out of the box that you can just pick and choose from. You can also just edit these if you want to, so you don't have to use them as they are. And then you can upload your own and, you know, create your own experiences. Go on.
You know, Dan, we were talking last week about advertising and the intrusiveness and the awkwardness still of specifically on connected TVs. But this kind of plays into that conversation a little bit, that this feels so much more engaging, interactive. I mean, you're essentially this is advertising for products, right? You know, it's not, you know, it's not programmatic in the sense what we were referencing last week, but still this is what I think is really needed in the industry in terms of how to, if you're going to introduce products and advertising into video, just doing it in a way that just feels more engaging. It feels tied in. It's not like this abrupt interruption and then you're watching something that's most likely unrelated to anything you're interested in, and then you're moving on to something else. It's connected and it's very engaging. So this is awesome.
Yeah, and you know, everything you just talked about is also true, because like we haven't really engaged with interactive technology as anything more than an ad in the past. Like, you know, when people talk about interactivity in the media industry, it tends to be about adding a click out link. That's not that exciting, right? And I think what's interesting about this stage, and equally why we're so excited that Vimeo are now bringing this to hundreds of millions of users, is that, you know, this empowers creators to make something that is creative with interactivity. It doesn't need to be just a click out link to buy something, right? I'm showing you a lot of that, but sometimes it's like, you know, Netflix use it to make interactive trailers, and as they do here, this is actually home of true crime, and experience for interactive trailer that, you know, went on to social and others, and it was a way to sort of start uncovering the clues in advance of the show. And so as you sort of explore, you kind of get little reveals of what's going on. And these are the things that are just much more experiential and much more involving to the audience before they get to watch a show. And I think, you know, we just have to excite the creative community in the media industry that, you know, things can be different and exciting, and they don't have to be hard to make.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because it's like what we're seeing now in the industry, even just with business in general right now, is that the creator economy is driving a lot of innovation across large businesses that have footing in, you know, industries that are previously thought of as being, you know, immovable, right? Like the individual creators having a lot of influence over the overall economy and driving a lot of innovation. So it's a really interesting time for sure.
Yeah, and you know that, you know, I just saw the 40 Food 20 newsletter about Paramount becoming Paramount, and you know it's you know I've met Bob Backish, and I think Viacom as a company has gone through lots of transitions. I really like Bob, and I think a lot of people like working with Bob, and it's a great business, but like, you know, it's hard to keep evolving when you've got a huge organization and legacy around you. Warner Media's got perhaps similar challenges, and I think you know, that leaves the open ground to people who haven't got that legacy, and they can step in and they can move it forward. And that's one of the things I'm finding exciting about Vimeo is, you know, they've got, you know, millions of customers who are creating their OTT channels themselves with Vimeo OTT products. You know, their fitness channels, you know, they're all you know, independent, like moving forward at their own pace. They don't need to go through, you know, the corporate structures to make something happen. And I think that's where we're seeing the innovation at the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's hard for everyone else.
Yeah.
But yeah. Go on. I don't want
No, wrap up your thought. I was taking it back to the Paramount.
Well, I was going to say, like, again, I'm not trying not to be too critical of the industry, but that's why there's something funny to me. Like, a lot of these discussions were had with, I won't name the companies, but XYZ companies in the media industry, big names, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. The ground was open 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. They could have done these movements forward. They could have created interactive shoppable connections. And I'm really great to see NBC building out what I've just shown you. But it takes so much time, you know, and that ground is now being taken up by the more nimble operators who don't have that legacy. But I do think that there's still an opportunity for these larger corporate media entities to take the leaps forward. It's just going to take some bold movements and not just making another Plus network.
I mean, you could make that argument about the time it took for folks to really make the pivot, fully immerse themselves into OTT and make that commitment to go to direct to consumer in the early days. I mean, I don't know about Kirby, but I thought it took a lot longer. Some were much more forward thinking and they were making that transition earlier, but there's been services out there that are just now discovering and enjoying the benefits of being able to go direct to consumer, that it's hard to believe that it took them this long to figure that out, you know, or maybe it's just, you know, I think a lot of it has to do with the logistics, obviously, around these contracts these companies have and just the technology involved and not really understanding it. So it's a lot. It's a big shift, but you know, yeah, I definitely think that the individual, like you said, the individual publishers, these smaller folks, just one person businesses at times. These are like one person companies that are driving a lot of driving it forward. And they're all helping each other. You know, it's allowing the bigger companies to get a feel for, like, is this real or is this just a phase that we're going through? Like, what's
one thing I would say actually is, if anyone is watching this from a large legacy entity, maybe, is like, I never really got my head around why large media entities didn't realize the power of their name and dollars. And by that I mean to say, like, you know, smaller companies like us, you know, when we were walking into these organizations, they would love upon us, right? Like, oh, this makes so much sense. We can do interactive in all these areas, in all these ways. And then they'd be like, can we do a range of pilots for no money and then we'll see how it goes? Like, they will spend $1 million on like coffee in one of the offices that's no longer being serviced or used. Like, take your money and put it into smaller businesses who are doing something exceptional, and you will get huge returns on that. Like, if somebody walked into us, right, a smaller technology business for video, and said, here's $1 million, we would do everything to make that work. It would just be the way it is. Like, we are focused on that. You guys have been there, and yet they won't do that. They'll spend $1 million on something that they've done 10 times over, or they'll spend it on a coffee machine in 32 West. You know, it's like, just think about the power you have.
There's so much to say here with this legacy media conversation. I laughed, not because I was laughing at you, Dan, but I was advising a company with some really cool tech, and basically, like, I just tagged along on all these meetings and just kind of like, pretty much that's what I did. I just tagged along, and so many times, actually every time, like the conversation was great. The whole room was floored. Like, we love this, we want to do it. And when it came to like figuring out the integration, first of all, like integrating any new tech in this industry is a pain in the ass. And we all know this on this podcast video, whatever we're doing here, because there's so many platforms. And so all these conversations every time went to, well, you know what, let's do a pilot on Apple TV. And it was always Apple TV. I don't know if that was the easiest one for them to touch or whatever. But first of all, the integration of new technology is tricky. But I think that's less of why people don't adopt certain cool tech that maybe they tell you to your face is cool. And what I've realized just along my journey, I guess, of life in large media companies is number one rule above everything else: job preservation. Like, I may think your tech's cool, but if this thing messes up or does, if it appears as if I just wasted $1 million of my company's dollars on this cool tech when we could have got a coffee machine, like, I might not have a job. Job preservation is a thing. It's real. I'm not saying, hey, willing to get fired. That's also different. Like, from me, you, and Tom, are like how we're cut different than somebody that's working at a media company. Like, we take risks. I mean, shit, we all started companies. Like, that just says it in itself. The other, and I ran it.
That is leadership that makes the difference, right? It's like there was a relatively famous in the UK general director of the BBC, Greg Dyke, and he was known to be fairly transformative for the BBC at the time. You know, the BBC is always an interesting independent public media entity for the sakes of it's just an unusual beast, I think. I'm always interested in its transformation and transitions. He really enabled a lot of change into digital at that time, and a lot of innovation happened because he was very clear that he wanted to see things fail and allow for failure. And I think that does have to come from the leadership, and does have to come from the top. And you know, think about people like Mr. Bezos and Amazon. It's very similar, right? You know, the day one philosophy is literally that. You know, start every day as if it's the first day you're running the company, because in 30 years time it might be fucked. So, like, if you keep going from that mentality and you allow for I don't remember the number, but I've read in one of the I think maybe one of his letters or something, the Bezos letters, to shareholders, that he accounts for a huge percentage of loss. Huge. Like, you know, that's how Alexa happened. You know, that's how Amazon Web Services happened. You know, and you have to do that from the top. You can't expect it to happen.
One final thing I'll say about the legacy media problem is another big issue is these are very massive, like, core businesses that are, many of them are ran by organizations that are publicly traded, and you can't just say, hey, screw this cable and satellite business where 90% of our revenue comes from, because we know this is the future and we want to go direct to consumer or not. Just we want to do something OTT. Is easier said than done, and challenges companies like Viacom, who has like ridiculous IP. Their biggest challenge is like, well, what goes where? We're producing all this stuff. Okay, this is Paramount. This is going to go first in the studio. Maybe the pay one window somewhere else. Let's send Yellowstone to every single streaming or service there is. By the way, I think it's been on everything but Acorn TV at this point. But it's like, yeah, what goes on Showtime? What goes on Paramount Plus? Does it go to the studios before Paramount Plus? What goes on like regular cable? That's tricky, and that's kind of what's hampering a lot of the legacy media companies. And there's a lot to unpack with the whole Paramount thing. I like my graphic though. Paramount, a Paramount company.
Yeah, I was wondering when your ceases and desists is going to come for that. But yeah, it's
that means I made it. So send it this way.
But yeah, so for the media, right, and HBO, and you know, that was an ongoing discussion. I certainly won't name any names, but I knew a fair amount of people who work with Warner Media, and that HBO obviously stepped out and having movies go straight to HBO Max, and I think a lot of people were critical at the time of that move and what the shake-up it did in the industry. But again, it's like, let's experiment. I mean, the pandemic was the time to do that. So I think it was a good trying out, understanding that Warner Media would piss off huge amount of cinemas and companies that depend on that.
God bless Jason Kyler. Like, so much of the like traditional Hollywood industry hates his guts, but I mean that was super cool what he did, and and they're going back to the theater releases this year, at least for now, whatever. But I mean that was cool to see an experiment like that.
I went to see Marry Me on Monday, Valentine's Day, of course, and it was a great movie, by the way. I love a rom-com, and it was a good experience. Equally, I found out when we booked it, I could have watched it on Peacock, and we've got decent sized TV. I was thinking, shall I just cancel? Can I cancel the tickets? And then we ended up thinking, no, actually, we want to go. Like, this is a different experience, and we enjoyed it for that reason. And I think that is a decision the customer, the audience can make, and cinemas becoming, and we've talked about this before, I think, Kirby, but cinemas becoming more experiential venues. Like the one that we go to here is like, they've got great food, they've got like booze, it's like hangout areas, and increasingly that's the case with a lot of cinema offerings. That makes it worth going to sometimes.
I don't know if anybody knows this, but do anybody here have an idea, like what percentage of movie theaters are that experiential type of theater? Or I don't even know how experiential. It's just bar food. It's about experience. I don't think it's a big portion. I think most theaters are, and I could be wrong, but I mean, we're still talking about a small fraction. Like a lot of movie theaters need to be overhauled to just big screens and sticky seats. But there's definitely opportunity there. Like where there's value, people will go. Like I've had a lot of conversations. It's been a while, but in the past about like first party data, not in the sense of advertising, but like what would, but speaking of advertising, like let's take, for example, an ad supported service that might have like a component where you could register to do some extra things. But essentially that company now with their email, there's some things they could do with marketing that they couldn't obviously do before when you're just some anonymous user. And I guess using that as context as people would ask, well, why would they do that? And the answer, like, why would they give you their email? Like, people will give you a lot of things if there's value to be received. And why would you go to the movie theater? Like, can't you just watch it at home? If there's some value, I will go to the movie theater. Totally. What's that value is what the movie theater needs to figure out. And I mean, I think just like making an event out of it is a decent enough start, especially for, I'll speak for myself, somebody with a 4 and 1 year old, where it takes us about 8 hours to get through a 2-hour movie with all the pauses.
So I
guess that's point movie theater, but also are the kids coming? I don't know. I've probably been to 4 theaters, and I actually went to one last week. I've probably been to the movie theater 4 times in 15 years. Not just
wow.
What's the value? And it really started with just all the streaming video, and specifically like Prime Video. And they would. I haven't used Prime Video and it feels like 15 years, but that would be like all your pay ones, a lot of pay one stuff. Like the first time it's available outside of theater would end up on Amazon. And I got accustomed, and we're going back 10 something years now. I just got really accustomed to not paying attention to what's coming out, what's in the theaters, and just notice when it drops on Amazon. And so I became fully comfortable and used to, well, I just watch everything when it's available on streaming. Like there are movies that have come out I didn't even know.
Yeah, and not to mention the technology at home, the viewing experience is incredible. I mean, you get these wireless surround sound speakers where you can really create very easily a home theater sound experience. I mean, that was always at least for me, one of the incentives of going to the theater was having that complete immersive experience. and a lot of people are getting that in their homes now. So, between that and, to your point, Kirby, I agree with you too. Like it's funny that you said that, because I was doing the exact same thing. I would literally just wait for it to show up in like new releases in the Prime Video, and I wouldn't even like, everything else was just noise. I just wait for it to pop up there, and I was even fine with paying for the premium rate to just get it right away when it was available for download. So yeah, I mean the theater would have to be
is like user interfaces. Why is it that Netflix are the only ones still nailing that? It seems to me that everyone else has got a slightly different form of a sort of OS that kind of feel from 2008. I'm don't know whether we can name names. These are some of your customers as well.
We can name names. This isn't even this thing's not even about the industry, so we can name names.
Yeah. So Netflix as soon as you're hovering over like something, it will start auto playing that episode, and then if you carry on watching it, you're in it. No need to go on and click anything else, touch anything else, right? Just fluidity of movement between content. I mean, obviously, Reed Hastings and team are all.
You're preaching to the choir, man. This is like, this was the stuff that we would talk about with our customers at Flow Left. Is that stuff, not specifically, there's certain elements that resonate. Netflix obviously has these big banner items that you can do that with, these big ticket, highly popular shows, but still, like, just the latency, low latency, getting into an experience where there's smooth animations and smooth transitions between one screen and the next. That stuff just has it has an impact. It keeps people in longer. We have data that proves that. And I mean, just the engagement factor goes up when you introduce those types of experiences. When things are a little bit hard, they feel rough and hard to use when you're having to like click through every little thing, and it just makes the whole experience just not as enjoyable. You're just going to back out of it, especially if the content level's not where it needs to be, where it's like mediocre content to begin with. You just have no patience for it, and you're going to go find something else. So
here's a real world experience, right? So if anyone would be watching this who works on Peacock, we'll submit this as a ticket. So I came in.
Is it about the video player?
Well, yes, but definitely. But so I came into Peacock. It was Olympics, obviously. And I didn't have a subscription. I had a free version. And I went to watch the Olympics, and it just came into the player and just did the old Wurlitzer, right? Probably for 30 seconds. Eventually, I would press a button, and it would come to a full screen JPEG, what it looked like, which basically said something about upgrading, but didn't actually offer any option to upgrade. It just said like premium, woo, like an ad. And so I would reverse out, and I thought, okay, I mean, surely it would tell me if I need a subscription. It wasn't very obvious. So I clicked again, same thing. So eventually I thought, well, I'll just, it's $4.99 for the month. This is how they get me in. I'll do it. I'll just see whether it works because of that. Also a data point for me, see whether that makes a difference. So I upgraded, which was in itself a little bit faffy because you have to go and then you go to the management of the account on the website. I did it on my phone. I was like clicking around, trying to find the password, come back in, then come back in, put my credit card in, upgrade, whatever, but come back. Then this bit was nice. Started auto playing. It then just syncs. They do that a lot these days. It syncs. It goes, now I pay. And then I could play. So the content did not tell me what to do. The experience did not tell me what to do in terms of upgrading. I had to figure out that that's what it wanted me to do. I'm sure that's just a bug, right? So
but I mean, you were willing to do that. You were willing to go through all of those flaming hoops because of the fact that you were trying to get to something specific to watch. Whereas if you're just like an inactive sort of observer and you're just kind of browsing for things, like.
And I'm also like you guys, a little bit of a TV geek and stuff, so I'm interested in whether that is the problem, and it was. And the other thing is, so now I've got a $4.99, which I'll probably revert to free at some point, because, you know, I'm finding it difficult to move on the options in Peacock. You know, like I'm on Google TV here, and, you know, I've also got the LG TV, so I'm using the Smart OS on that. And like each movement of the button is like, you know, it's like really sticky. And to your point, like those things, now you've mentioned that lack of engagement, I'm wondering how much that's played a part in my experience, because I'm not really going to Peacock. You know, I've gone into a few times to see something specific on the Olympics, and then I thought, can I be bothered to click or onto the next item? No.
It's not. I think it's one of those. It's a psychological thing. It's not necessarily the thing that's in the forefront of your mind, but it does play when you're deciding, when you're in those moments of making those decisions. Those things do come into play for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I've experienced it personally, so I know for sure that at least affects me.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of opportunity to grow it.
It's hard. I mean, it's hard. It's not impossible, but it is hard depending on, you know, it is a specialty to be able to get that to do what you want it to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, and how you build things. I mean, there's ways to do it, and then you can have at the surface level, you can have things that look exactly the same, but underneath the hood, depending on how it's constructed, there's a lot that goes into, you know, how you interact and how things move across the screen, and so yeah. But it's a highly specialized function to do that, you know. So
it amazes me how many like you look around all the various streaming services, and you just, it becomes obvious that they all looked at Netflix and are basically just recreating the app, even with the even like just to the vignetted photo, or if they have the video, they're putting the video in the top right, and then and obviously I'd like to see a little more creativity, but what works. So I won't knock that. But what I will mention about the autoplay, when you said it, it just something that like popped in my head, which really always pops in my head every time I talk about interfaces for these streaming services, is like, obviously we've come a long way since, I'll just name a year, 1985, in terms of like consumption of video content. With everything that's changed and the convenience and accessibility of essentially like literally anything I want, I can watch it anywhere I want. Like, shit, I could buy Showtime even through 12 different places. Like, it's that convenient. But like, without like two main things, which I'll get into, like these interfaces are no different other than digital versions of the Blockbuster store. So we all go into the same front door. Here's the new releases on the right. That's that shelf. And over to the left, we have the staff picks. And on the back, we have this. And we're all getting the same row. And obviously, well, maybe if it's not obvious, but definitely personalization like kind of plays a part. And that's the second thing that I think is very important with content interfaces. And like, just imagine a store. Well, first of all, just imagine like going to your local down the block, like mom and pop video stores. Like, oh, hey, Dan, I know you like rom-coms. Check out this one that came out. I know you saw this movie. You should check this one out. Or you like this actor, actress, check that out. Like, it's something that it's a tastemaker that knows you more than a bland, blank Blockbuster type of experience. And that's very important. That's going to get you to watch more content, engage with more titles. But what you mentioned, and really I'm going in order, this is the first one, is just the autoplay feature. And going back to using Blockbuster as an example, and interfaces that don't have any sort of autoplay or any sort of personalization are no different than Blockbuster in the sense when I'm here. I'll actually have DVDs.
I thought you were going to bring out VHS.
I think there's a couple of PlayStation games in here. But when by the way, Growing Pains first season, that's a keeper. So okay, you're using Netflix or whatever.
I love the fact that was like, by the way, that wasn't even like on your shelf. It was like right in arm's length,
in reach. Yeah,
you could just grab it and pull it down.
I forgot I was wearing shorts, so
Hey, man.
hopefully you guys enjoyed the view. But no, what I'm going to is like as advanced as we've gotten with all these interfaces that have all the content we ever wanted to watch available to us at any time on any device, like we still make all of our programming decisions based on this criteria. What's the box art look like? What's the synopsis or actors and actresses in the movie? And hey, does that look cool enough for me to like even check out the backside? That's what most interfaces are. And there's going to be some misses of things that you might love that you never like to click on, or you never would have chose to pick up at the video store because the title stinks and I don't know who's in that. But with the autoplay, the example of autoplay reminds me of going to a used record store. Like, oh, that CD looks cool, but let me go put it in the CD player and check it out. You know what? I like that. So let me take it home. Otherwise, like maybe that just wasn't enough to get me home with that CD. But being able to taste something gives you a little preview of something beyond just this, because interfaces are, for the most part, just this. And my example is of a big miss for me is there's a show on Discovery. It's called Dual Survival. So I know this now after the fact, but I was on an airplane when I was living in New York City, coming down to Florida. And on the flight, there was this, on the screen was this show. It was like some like Green Beret military guy and some dude in a loincloth. And they were like in the jungle, like hacking shit up and like building tents out of sticks. And like, I don't know, it's not really like, look at me, I wear Hawaiian shirts. Not really my type of show. And I was just kind of bored now, like an hour and a half in this flight, this show comes back on again. And I'm like, I'm kind of bored at this point. I listen to all my downloaded things on Spotify. So I plug in and see what this thing's going on. And you know what? That 15 minutes I had until the flight landed, I was pissed because I missed the end of the episode. Like that was monumental for me because I fell in love with the show just by being exposed to it, being immersed in it. I would have never chose that on any app, no matter what, never. So I enjoyed it there. And then when I was at the in-laws' house down in Florida, and I watched on their Comcast DVR or VOD, whatever, like the whole one season. When I went back to New York City, I binge watched the whole 7. Like it's one of my favorite shows. It's so cool and interesting. Never in a million years would have chose that based on this.
So Kirby, one thing that and Dan, this is really, really interesting stuff. One of the things I was really passionate about at Float Left was creating, applying like A/B testing technology to what we were doing on CTV. So things like A/B testing screens, like, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would bet that Netflix is testing their A/B testing screens, their A/B testing layouts, or A/B testing thumbnails. I think that there's something to be said about. Obviously, as
well, those tests, and like they're always winner wins automatically and programmatically. You know that one of those poster frames. I mean, we've got some a friend's company. My co-founder Steve, his brother, his uncle. Anyway, I can't remember his relationship to him, but he's basically got this company that makes poster frames for Netflix, and they make hundreds of them. For each on every single show. And it's all just selection based on the testing. What's coming to the top, what's going to be presented is the most popular one by actions taken by the users, nothing else.
So real quick story. I was on Netflix yesterday, and I'm looking at, I happen to be a huge Harrison Ford fan. Okay. Like if there was one celebrity I want to meet, it's Harrison Ford. Okay. Yeah. So for some reason, now this just may be a weird coincidence. Okay. But first of all, I had no idea that Harrison Ford was in Apocalypse Now. Okay. I don't know if anybody knows that, but anyway, he's in Apocalypse Now, and his face is on the thumbnail for Apocalypse Now. I mean, it's just one of those things. Like, why would you put? And it's like there's nothing else. It's literally just like Harrison Ford in a military uniform on Apocalypse Now. I've never seen a thumbnail for that movie with him on there. No, and I just thought to myself, I'll be a son of a gun if there's not a way that these guys are like, they know something about me. They know that I like Harrison Ford. And to your point, Dan, like if they're making hundreds of these thumbnails with like all the celebrities' faces on the thumbnail. And then depending on who's watching, they're going to put that thumbnail, they're going to serve that thumbnail to that user. That's mind blowing. That's pretty
and
crazy.
why not? You know, and you know, I know that the instant trigger in the head there for a lot of people is, what about privacy and you know those sorts of things. Like, fine, I opt out, but you know, to me that's useful. That I want to be, you know, given something that's a better recommendation based on my interests, and you know that will make my experience better. Netflix have written a blog, I think it was fairly recently, about some of the tests they're doing that have been, I mean, they're always doing tests, but the one that came out over the last couple of years during the pandemic was that top 10 in the US right now list, which when I saw it, I was like, I kind of always wanted this. You know, there is a popularity, you know, whether you want it or not, you know, people are ranking things like that. People think about things like that. What's the hottest show right now is something people talk about. And taking away that, you know, perhaps in the pandemic, it was even more exposed that that interest and need wasn't being fulfilled because people weren't doing water cooler gossip so much at the office, right? You know, what you're watching right now is not really something you cover on the multiple Zoom calls you do a day. It tends to be a bit more work orientated and executional. So, you know, those sorts of like navigation mechanisms, which are like shorthand, you know, what are people in the US watching right now? That's actually valuable to me. And I found that I can use that list. It doesn't change as often as perhaps I would want, you know, but, you know, on a weekly basis, there's normally something new to find in that list. And that is something which came as a result of a test, apparently.
And by the way, like this entire conversation, I think that this is ultimately why fast is exploding right now, because of the realization that people just don't, like, even with high levels of personalization, you're still finding yourself, or at least I am, looking for things to watch, you know. And then that coming full circle of like the linear experience, that wasn't why people went to OTT. That was what we thought, but it was just a pre-programmed. I don't know. I mean, it just feels like, you know, the fast is the complete blend of you know, pure OTT and that linear experience that we all love, that lean back, don't have to pick anything. But anyway, I just
it's
think
the best of both worlds.
Yeah, for sure.
Like when you want to be the programmer, find your thing to watch on demand. If you just want to kind of tune out, aimlessly watch something, do some laundry, whatever, just lean back and then the next level, just sit back.
Yeah, then the next level being like these are being programmed on the fly based on my
personalized
choices.
Linear channels. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a guy we met a while back, Arnie Weiss, was all about this like years ago. Dan, so I did hear a calendar thing go off about 8 minutes ago. Are we got like 2 minutes, Dan? Okay. There's a question I want to ask you. I don't know if 2 minutes is enough time, but again, congrats on the acquisition. My question is, what are you most looking forward to and not looking forward to, going from like co-founder of a company to like a role within now the company that bought your that bought WIREWAX?
It's one and the same in the answer, actually, and it's already, you know, coming to vision, is that we're not used to there being other people around that do things. And, you know, that is both a blessing and a curse. We're like getting used to the idea because like you have a huge amount of resource that when you're working on things can go into action. And on the other hand, I'm a fixer, I'm a doer. I love getting in there and just moving things forward. And so like, this is a learning curve for me to be able to literally figure out what makes most sense for the business, for me, for being able to navigate in this sort of world, because doing everything is my sort of default. And, you know, in a business of 1,200 people, it is now, perhaps more, you know, that doesn't work. You've got to be able to work in a collaborative way with everyone. And I want to have the empowerment of all of these great people in this company. And also culturally, they're very similar to the way we were at WIREWAX. So it's that really. And with that comes huge power of scale, if you get that combination right.
How big was the team, Dan, when you got acquired? Oh, sorry, Kirby.
We're about 25, 26 people around that. So, you know, we were fairly lean. And anyway. And to be honest, that's actually been a help whilst we've moved into this, because, you know, each individual is a person, right? And so moving into a different company takes an individual level of attention. And I think that was a manageable kind of number. If you're talking about hundreds of people coming into a larger organization, that's probably a pretty big undertaking.
I'm gonna miss the crankshift elevator you guys had.
Yeah,
the guy
that was a danger, and
the
a danger to itself and others. That office was a nightmare, by the way. But yes.
And so are you remote California from here on out? Like Vimeo's not making you move back to New York, and is Vimeo even? No, what are they doing? They're full remote.
Yeah, so they're still in office company, but they have they're still remote generally at the moment, and I think increasingly coming back to the offices. The main office is in New York, and there's a satellite office in a few other places, including London. So our London-based team is now part of that office, and I'll be going back to New York probably, once every other month or something along those lines, so we can keep in touch with what's going on day to day. But I think personally I'm enjoying the combination of living here and working as I am. The only downside is early mornings. 5-6 a.m. is quite normal, but other than that, it's good.
So thank you, Dan. I know you got to go to a meeting. Appreciate you. Like I said, always entertaining these video ventures and that
Absolutely.
I have in my head. Let me know next time you're in New York. I'm trying to get in April. We should go do a happy hour, invite those other two people, and maybe spark another conversation about hot dogs.
Yeah.
Duck Eatery, if it's still there.
I know. That's another question. I don't know what's left. I hope there's I hope places we used to go to are, but yeah. Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much, Dan. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Dan.
See you guys.
All right, sir. See you, Kirby.
See ya.